As such, we ask that you please mute your phones and please do not put us on hold. The recording will be available at the end of the session. We will post it on the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution website. Again, we're pleased to sponsor this webinar and a series of webinars with the help and the assistance of the Dispute Resolution section of the Alabama State Bar. If you are seeking continuing legal education credit with the Alabama State Bar, I would appreciate you completing the evaluation that was sent to you in the invitation with the webinar. It has a SurveyMonkey link for you to complete the evaluation. And during the webinar, I will provide you with a code to enter into the evaluation survey. This will help with the requirements for the Alabama State Bar attendance to verify that you attended. And again, last but not least, the webinar is being recorded. And I think that pretty much covers our ground rules. So please mute your phones and please do not put us on hold. I am pleased to introduce you to Kathleen Cobble. I met Kathleen at the American Bar Association Dispute Resolution Section Spring Conference in April of this year in Washington, D.C. We had a delightful conversation about the topic that she's going to address with you today. And this topic, I believe, is very timely. I've met with mediators around Alabama and have received requests for training such as this. And so we're very pleased to have Kathleen join us. Kathleen earned her law degree from the University of Houston Law Center. She's also a mediator and a business owner. And having said all that, I'd like to go ahead and now turn the webinar over to Kathleen.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate all of you giving up some of your Thursday to learn about this topic. This is a topic that is very near to my heart, as prior to law school, I was a corporate accountant and ran other people's businesses, and I got a business degree from the University of Texas. During my work in accounting, it was clear to me that not everybody, being a business owner and running a successful business is not something that you just know how to do. It's something that you need to learn how to do. And lawyers often, and mediators often, get into their profession without understanding that unless they work for someone else and have a job, they are going to end up being business owners. And being a business owner is a lot of responsibility to ourselves and to our families that we're working to support. And so we're talking today about how we're going to manage our mediation businesses, because mediation businesses are as much businesses as anything else. So I own my own business, my law firm, of which I have several partners. I also own a side business called Book Mediation, which you're going to hear a little bit more about, that does online scheduling. So I personally own 3 businesses. My husband owns a business as well. So we run businesses in our everyday life. So I'm going to start off with, I understand some of you are new mediators and some of you are established mediators. So I'm going to try to address as many topics as I can. The subject is obviously a broad one. I could talk about it all day long, but there will be time for questions at the end. All right, so I think what we all are concerned about is maximizing our profit while we're doing the work that we want to do. I think mediating is a great field. I'm actually in the middle of a mediation right now that is going on in my office. I'm focusing more on mediation these days. I'm a family lawyer, but I'm switching to less litigation and more mediation. But I'm always concerned about how much money I'm making and whether I'm maximizing the money I can make. So there's only 2 ways to ever make more money. You can earn more money, bring more money in the door, and you can spend less money and send less money out the door. So we're going to start with talking about how to bring more money in. And if you're just getting started as a mediator, we're going to talk about how to get a good running start. So the first thing we need to do is making sure that we're having the number of mediations that we want to have. That may be different for every person. Some people have other jobs and they only mediate on the side. Some people mediate as part of their jobs. Some people are full-time mediators. I'm trying to do about a 50-50 split right now with my practice between litigation and mediation. So the first thing we want to talk about, of course, is networking. And networking is never done. You never check the box. It's something that goes on all the time because you never know how you're going to end up with mediation business. My experience is that people have to see you and think about you regularly to give you mediation business. Now, there's, of course, two different kinds of mediation business. There's the kind you get from lawyers. That's the main part of my business. And there's the kind you get from pro se individuals that are representing themselves. If you are a mediator that does not do legal disputes, you do workplace disputes, or you do some other kind of mediations, then you might get clients in a different way. But networking is a very important part of that, and it's something that we have to dedicate time to. Scheduling, making sure that you're capturing all the mediations that you can, because once you've done all that networking, you've done marketing, you've done whatever you're going to do to try to get the calls and get the people in the door, you have to make sure that they can get in the door, that they can get on your calendar. And this is a surprisingly big problem for mediators. Most of the time, because mediators are scheduling in a very old-fashioned way, either by telephone or by email. My personal experience with that is that, and from mediators I've talked to across the country, is that there are multiple phone calls exchanged, there are multiple emails exchanged, dates are held, and they can't be held any longer, they're given up, the clients say they aren't available, get more dates. There's a lot of inefficiency that goes on with scheduling. Now, for my other business, Book Mediation, this is the part that we have chosen to focus on as a huge problem facing mediators today that I am trying to solve or participate in solving. And so we offer a program that does online scheduling for mediators. Book Mediation syncs with the mediator's calendar every 5 minutes. So if you were to log on to bookmediation.com, search for me, you could find my exact calendar. Okay, and you can book me for a mediation right now. And if any of you are interested in my service, feel free to book me for a fake mediation to see how it goes and see the process. But scheduling is an issue that confronts all mediators. The folks that are by themselves without staff have the issue of being able to return calls and emails in a timely fashion. Let's say you're in a 12-hour mediation and you don't get to calls that day, or you're on vacation and you don't return calls and emails, you may lose a lot of business that could have been yours had they been able to get on your schedule. So I really encourage you to look at what you're doing for scheduling. If you have staff, in my situation, I have staff for my law practice that handles mediation. They are also supposed to be billing, and I only get paid as a mediator during the time that I am mediating that day. So anything else I do, if I use my staff that's supposed to be billing on other clients, that's money out of my pocket. That's money off of my profit of my mediation, because I only bill for myself and I only bill the time that I'm actually mediating. So if you are a person that is using staff to help you with mediation, I want you to really look at how that salary, bonuses, health insurance, all the things that you contribute to that employee cut away at your profit margin of your mediations, and look at ways to minimize staff, minimize back and forth. Online scheduling, I think, is one of those things that mediators really need to look into to make sure they're capturing the mediations that they can get. Covering for other mediators is something that I very much recommend, because let's say you have a mediation scheduled on Friday and God forbid you have a family tragedy and you have to go out of town for a funeral and you ask somebody to cover that mediation. All mediators have that situation. They have to go to court unexpectedly, they get sick, for whatever reason they have to cancel that mediation. Find your friends, find mediators that you like and respect, that have good businesses, that have good practices, and get into a covering arrangement. Okay, so if Bob comes down with the flu, be the person that Bob calls to take over that mediation. It's a good way to pick up last-minute mediations that you might not normally have had, to fill in gaps in your schedule. It's also a good way to make sure that your customers are taken care of if you have that unexpected thing happen and you need to find someone to cover. The next bullet point is making the mediation experience great for your customers. Okay, so I sometimes jokingly refer to this presentation as butts in the seats, the butts in the seats talk. And what that means is, first you have to get people to try you as a mediator, get their butts in your seats, right? Get them to try you for mediation. And then if you're dealing with attorneys, you want them to come back, okay? And to get them to first come, and second, to get them to come back or refer their friends, they have to have had a good experience with you. And that's not just about mediation. It's not just about what a great mediator you are, because you could be a great mediator, and if your office has bad parking, if you're hard to schedule with, if you don't have good snacks, if you have uncomfortable chairs, if your AC is broken regularly, all of these things go into whether or not people are going to come back or refer their friends. My advice is to walk through your entire mediation experience or have a good friend do it from the time they hear about you and they want to get on your calendar until they sign their names on the mediated settlement agreement and they leave. Okay? Sit in the chairs. Look at the lighting in your office. Look at all of these things that go into whether people have a good experience. And if you are in a profession where you mediate with other people, so for example, as a lawyer, I obviously go to other mediators for my own cases. Take a look around and see what they're doing that you like. See what they're doing that gets good reviews from other people. I know parking is a big one. The comfort of their surroundings and the rooms that they're in is a big one. Things like being able to plug in their laptops, being able to, have a comfortable day, right? Look at all those things, walk through your whole experience, and make sure you're doing everything you can. Marketing yourself as a mediator. This is complicated because there are a lot of people mediating out there, and you need to tell people what you are bringing to the table. What's special about you, and why should they hire you? It's not enough to just say, I'm a mediator, right? There's plenty of mediators. What is your experience? What is your expertise? What is your background? Why do you think they should hire you? How are you going to sell yourself that they should hire you instead of someone else? For my purposes, my accounting background tends to be an important factor. My family law expertise and the fact that I go to trial, being board certified in family law, those kind of things. When I market myself as a mediator and I tell people why they should come to see me, these are the things I emphasize. Look at yourself, your experience, what other people say about you, reviews you've gotten, whatever, and make sure you're mentioning those when you're marketing yourself and when you're networking. All of that has to do with getting new customers in the door. I am not a marketing expert, I'll tell you that. I listen to the same seminars y'all listen to about search engine optimization and AVO and all these other things. But obviously those things are important in getting new customers in the door. If you are starting out, look carefully, do your research, make sure you're getting on with good groups, that you're hiring the right people, that you are doing the right things for marketing. You're going to have to put some time into it. You're going to have to put some time into networking if you're a new mediator to get your practice started. Some of the subjects that I've been asked about in prior presentation are cancellation fees and flat fees. So a cancellation fee obviously being a fee that they pay if they cancel the mediation within a certain time frame. I would encourage cancellation fees if you are going to be a full-time mediator, because that is time that you have not been able to get another mediation. In family law, it is common for mediations to be canceled because they've decided they need to do more discovery, because the parties decided to reconcile because of one thing and another. I personally do not charge cancellation fees in my practice because I have a litigation practice and I can always use a free day to do other things. But if I were to ever become a full-time mediator, I would probably charge a cancellation fee, something like 24 hours. I think that's a pro, obviously, that you can at least recoup a little bit of money, maybe an hour or 2 hours of time if they cancel within some window. The con, obviously, is that if other people in your market are not doing that, that might discourage people from mediating with you if they're worried that they're going to end up getting charged this cancellation fee. If it's not common in your market, I would encourage you not to do it then. It might set you apart in a way that you don't want to be set apart. Flat fees versus hourly charging. This is also something I think is pretty market determinative. In my market, we mainly charge hourly. I'm in Austin, Texas. I do charge hourly rounded to the half hour because it always seems to take longer to actually wrap people up and get them out the door than I think. In my litigation practice, I charge by tenths of the hour. In mediation, I charge by the half hour. Flat fees can be good for people to help them plan, to help them budget, to know what they're getting into. We're going to talk a little bit more about billing expectations in a little while. Flat fees versus hourly. On a flat fee, you're always taking a gamble. Either you're going to make less money per hour because the mediation has gone over, or you're going to make more money per hour because the mediation has been shorter. If you think, though, that your customer base, which just takes some research and talking to other people, would prefer one or the other, that's what I would encourage for you to make your main factor in deciding which way you're going to charge. I would also, though, if you are in a market where hourly and flat fee are common, that you make sure that you're letting people know, if you're going to charge a flat fee, what your hourly rate is as you predict it. So, for example, if you're going to charge $250 an hour and you're going to make your flat fee $1,000 for a half day for 4 hours, that you make that clear so they can compare you to other mediators and they understand how you rank as far as cost. So the last bullet point on this slide is, what is your market doing and where are you in the market? You need to be paying attention to what other people are doing, particularly people that you perceive to be successful. What are they doing for their customers? What are they charging? How are they managing their practice? How are they managing their fees? What kind of forms do they have? Do as much research and get as much information as you can about what other people are doing, because this informs you on the market. The mediation market is broad and diverse. So if you are in the field of, let's say you're a mental health professional, you're not a lawyer, and you're going to be mediating pro se parties, look specifically at that. The lawyer mediation group may not inform you as much as looking for people that are doing something similar to you or have a background similar to you. But look at the market, look at what people like about mediation. If you can get feedback from your customers and share that with other people, be a part of the market as well. All right, so now we need to make sure we're getting the money that we're earning. If you are going to do pro bono work, which is wonderful, make sure that you know it's pro bono work and that you have agreed to do pro bono work. That's different than getting stiffed, okay? This is very hard work. I'm a divorce lawyer and I'm a divorce mediator, and it's very hard, and it's a lot harder when you don't get paid for it. So how are we going to make sure we're actually getting the money after we've done all this work to get the butts in the seats? How are we going to get the money? How are you taking payments? I strongly encourage you all to take credit cards. I always prefer checks and cash, and I request checks when available, but of course I take credit cards. I take all the credit cards. We're going to talk about the fees later on in the program, but I encourage you to take payments in a variety of ways for convenience of the customers. That's part of their experience, okay? When and how are you collecting? There's a lot of different ways to do this. Again, it's a kind of a market issue. What are people doing in your area? I take payment at the end of the day, and nobody gets out of my office without paying. Now, I only mediate for lawyers. I don't usually do 2 pro se parties. If you are going to mediate 2 pro se parties, I know that a lot of my colleagues that do that collect the money up front or collect a deposit. People will, unfortunately, do the wrong thing and not pay you. They will come to the whole mediation and then say, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to pay. Oh, I forgot my checkbook. I forgot my credit card. Can I call you back later? And then they never call. Okay. You're going to have to be firm about collecting the money that is earned. Okay. It doesn't always feel good, but to run a successful business, you've got to collect money. So when and how are you collecting, and how are you letting people know that that's the case? Setting expectations is a very important part of this. What we do in my firm is, as soon as a mediation is booked, we send out an agreement to mediate along with a letter that says, this is my address, this is where you park, this is what's going to happen with lunch and all of that kind of thing. We do full day mediations in Texas, so I usually provide lunch at my office on the full days. I send out an agreement to mediate, and in there it says what my fee is, how it is charged per half hour, when it is collected at the end of the day, that the client is responsible for paying that fee. Now, in Texas, because I do divorce law, it's half and half. So my letter says, unless there is another written agreement, 50% for one side, 50% for the other side. And that payment is expected at the conclusion of mediation. You need to make it clear, if you have a website, if you are doing pro se parties and you send out information, that it tells them exactly when they are supposed to pay, how much they are supposed to pay, and how they are going to pay. So if you're not going to take credit cards, make sure they know they need to bring a check or cash. Signed agreements are required in Texas. I highly recommend you getting a signed agreement. If you're a lawyer, I highly recommend that it says that the mediator is not going to give you any legal advice. So they don't say, well, I thought he was my lawyer, or I thought he was representing me. Signed agreement that says what they're going to pay, when they're going to pay it, how they're going to pay it. Okay. I usually get my agreement signed towards the beginning of the day. It's called an agreement to mediate. And it lays out my fees along with the letter that I send as soon as the mediation is booked. Invoicing and billing, that is something that you want to do if you decide to delay payment for some reason, or you want to ask for payment ahead of time. I don't generate invoices for my mediation practice. I just calculate the hours at the end and everybody writes me a check or pays with a credit card. If you are taking deposits, you might want to consider having some kind of invoicing system or billing system that generates a bill or some kind of a notification of what there are to pay and what that includes. If you're charging a flat fee, be specific about what your flat fee includes. Okay, how many hours it's going to be, or if it's a full day or a half day, what it doesn't include. If it doesn't include phone calls or prep time, that kind of thing. Set expectations. Be specific about how and when everybody's going to pay, and then make sure that you enforce it. No one is going to care more about you getting paid than you. So you have to be the guy that says, no, I'm sorry, I can't wait. You need to pay me right now. Call somebody. I've had people calling credit cards over the phone, whatever needs to be done. I'm nice about it, but I have to enforce it. All right, so now we're going to talk about what I refer to as the overhead monster. It doesn't matter what kind of practice you have, you're going to have some kind of overhead. And it's easy to underestimate your overhead and then say, why don't I have more money? Why am I not making any money? So we looked at two types of overhead. We look at fixed and we look at variable. Fixed overhead is something that happens relatively the same every time. Rent, utilities, salaries are a good example of fixed overhead. You can, with a lot of accuracy, predict your fixed overhead every month. You should be able to, and you should be able to tell me what it is. Okay. Variable overhead is something that changes all the time or doesn't happen on a regular basis. Bonuses, any kind of outside help, you may only pay your accountant to do your taxes, so that's a once a year charge. Mediation expenses that go up and down with how many mediations you have. So lunch, snacks, drinks, copies, if you run a copy or pay by the copy. Credit card fees are a good example of something that can add up very quickly. These are all things that you should have an idea about how much you spend if you are running a good business. So let's talk about how we're going to manage our overhead. The first thing to do is to make a plan. And this is for everybody. This is whether you've been in business for 20 years or you're going into business tomorrow. You need to make a plan. That includes making a budget. Okay, how much are you going to plan to bring in? How much are you going to plan to spend? Be conservative on spending, meaning if you think your utilities are going to be about $200 a month, I'd plan for $300 a month. It's always better to end up with more money than less. You can always be surprised in a pleasant way, okay? And budgets rarely turn out the way people expect. There's always something. So be conservative, plan to spend more than you think you might spend. Be realistic. This is a plan. If you are too hopeful, it's probably not going to go very well, okay? So be realistic. If you have a very old air conditioner, don't think, well, you know, I'll just run the air conditioner at 80 degrees and I can probably cut a few $100s a month, okay? Be realistic about what's really going to happen. Don't forget the small stuff that can add up. If you mediate every day, things like coffee and sodas and snacks are going to be a part of your budget, and it's going to be significant. It's also part of the comfort that we are going to talk about, that we have talked about walking through your day, making sure people are comfortable, that they want to come back, okay? Don't forget the small stuff. Credit card fees are definitely in there. Usually they're average between 1.5% and 3% of each transaction. So credit card fees are a big one. Don't forget outside help. I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but I'm probably in a small percentage of lawyers that could actually run my entire business if I wanted to. I can run my own payroll, I can do my own taxes, I can do all those things. I don't, because I don't have that kind of time. Okay, I need to be a full-time practicing lawyer and mediator. I'm also a mother of 2 children, and I'm married, and I have a lot of responsibilities to a lot of different people. So I don't do everything myself. I don't have that kind of time, and I don't think it would be the best for my business to do it all myself. So get an accountant you trust, get a payroll company you trust, get somebody to run your HR, get people that you need, get staff if you need staff. Look at who you're going to have to help you run your successful business and be realistic about it. As far as getting the right facilities, this is very important in mediation. If people are crammed into a tiny room and your cable doesn't really fit well inside the room, and so you can't fit as many chairs and there's no outlets to plug your computer in, but it's a good, cheap office, you've defeated your purpose, right? Because you're going to have trouble keeping butts in the seats. Get the facilities that, if you, as much as you can afford on a realistic budget, to encourage people to come back. You're going to have to spend some money on things that get the butts in the seats. Okay, so you need to make a realistic plan, but get as much comfort as you can afford. Research your vendors. Make sure you're getting a good deal. Make sure you've looked at more than one thing. I know this is hard, and I don't always do all these things the best way either. That you're doing the research, you're getting the people that you need, you're talking to other people. Who do you use for credit cards? Who do you use for accounting? Who do you use for these different things? Get the best people you can, and get the best programs that you can that you need to run your business. I highly encourage people to share expenses. Find some friends, share an office, share a group of conference rooms, share a copier, share a phone system. All of these things are very, very expensive, and they add up. If you can share with people, it's a whole other lecture about getting into office sharing and partnership arrangements and how to divide money. That's a whole other thing. But if you are able to share expenses, I highly encourage you to do that. All right, so we've made a plan. We're doing our budget. Now we need to figure out if the budget is working. We got to track it. Now, the easiest report you can ever get on your money is your bank statement. Okay. It says how much you brought in, and it says how much you spent. And that money, that total at the bottom is either happy or sad. If you're going to do nothing else, at least do that. It is amazing to me how many lawyers and mediators bury their head in the sand and have absolutely no idea how their business is performing. Okay. If you're going to do nothing else, at least do that. Obviously, I'm going to encourage you to do a little bit more. Bookkeeping is not as scary as you think it is. However, the bank statement is at least a start. Keep in mind, credit cards are only a one-line item on a bank statement that just says your credit card got paid. The credit card needs to be brought into that assessment to see what went on your credit card. Okay. Do some mild bookkeeping if you can. There are very simple bookkeeping programs out there in which you can do simple books. But billing and bookkeeping are the primary ways that you want to do tracking. If you get a simple bookkeeping system, I personally use QuickBooks, then you can run reports to see how's it going, right? How is my spending this month versus last month? What is the difference? And I can look and say, well, what's the difference? Why am I so far down this month? And you can also say, am I sticking to the plan? Was my plan realistic in the first place, and is it working? You might need to adjust the plan. Plans can change all the time. But once you make a plan, don't ruin all that work by not tracking how you're doing with the plan and evaluating the plan. Okay. Make sure that you have programs that you can use and can afford. What I find, and is troubling to me for a lot of mediators and lawyers, is they sign up for programs that then they are terrified of, and they don't end up really using them, and they just pay monthly or pay for them, and they just sit there gathering software dust. If you get a tool, make sure you can use it, make sure you can afford it, that it's actually going to work for you, which means that you're going to use it, and then use it to the best of your abilities and for the purposes that you need. All right, so the revenue leak. Mediation expenses can eat you up pretty quickly. They should be part of the plan, right? So you plan for as many as you can, and then you make sure that you're not having unexpected expenses that are leaking all your revenue out. So copies, travel. So if you offer to travel to mediations in other counties or far away or wherever you offer to travel, make sure that's accounted for in the plan. Are you going to charge a travel fee? A lot of mediators in my area do charge a travel fee. So if they're expected to go to another county, they're willing to, but they charge an hour of time or they charge some kind of administrative fee for travel. Time spent setting up mediations. This can be for you, work that you don't do because you're doing other work, such as, well, I can only mediate 3 days a week because the other 2 days a week I have to be returning phone calls and buying snacks and doing all these other things. Okay. So how much time are you spending setting up mediations? Are you using staff and paying them to set up mediations? And how can you change that? How can you automate? How can you get other tools to decrease that time and that money? Office staff obviously is an expensive thing to have, but it's sometimes very necessary. Lunch, snacks, and refreshments. I've had mediations where people have shown up with both of their parents and 3 lawyers. And I have to look at that as far as I'm buying lunch for all of these people. How does that fit into my profit? Do I need to ask for additional money because they brought all these additional people I wasn't expecting? I don't usually. I'll just tell you right up front because I charge $250 an hour for mediation, and so I just, buy a couple of extra lunches. But I do look at overall expenses. Is a mediation going to be particularly paper intensive? And maybe I try, rather than making 1,000 copies in a day, I look at, can I do more of it on the computers and do more of it via email rather than printing out over and over and over and over. I have, if people have brought unexpected people, they have offered to pay for lunch, I sometimes take that offer. So these little things can add up, particularly if you're running a tight margin. And then I know I've talked about credit card fees several times. It's just one of those things. My firm in particular, we spend several $1,000s a month on credit card fees. So it's just an expense that needs to be taken into account. So how are you going to plug your revenue leak? What can you, as far as, you can manage your expenses, you can make a plan, you can track it, but then we need to talk about how else, that's sending money out, how else are we going to bring money in to control the revenue leak? Travel fees, prep time charge. So if somebody expects you to, you have a big commercial mediation and somebody wants you to read documents for 4 hours to prep for it, make sure you set an expectation of what your prep time is and how much is going to be charged. Okay, so when is it going to be charged? How is it going to be charged? And what are they getting for that? So make sure you're charging for your prep time because that's time you're working on your mediation. Some mediators charge an administrative fee. So for example, some number of dollars that just gets added on to the total for copies, snacks, drinks, staff time, whatever needs to be done. I don't personally do that, but I think it's something that's particularly if you are charging a lower rate, it's a good way to plug the revenue leak is to have some not too monumental administrative fees that you include. Again, make sure it's known up front what that is and why they're paying it. All right, so when the plan doesn't work, so I'm at the end of the month and it's been 3 months since I made the plan and I'm still making the same amount of money, look at your hourly rate. Are you charging a fair hourly rate? And are you charging enough of an hourly rate to make money? Because this is our business. This is the way that we pay for our living expenses, the way that we have chosen to make money. We have to make money. If the business isn't working, maybe we need to look at another line of work, right? Maybe this line of work isn't for us. If we're not getting enough mediations after a certain amount of time, if we just cannot seem to make enough money to stay afloat. But take another look at your hourly rate. Ask your friends, ask people that are mediating around you, what are they charging? Can you eke out another $25 an hour or $50 an hour in your hourly rate? And what money is slipping through the cracks? Something's going wrong with your plan, okay? All right, so this is a little bit of a side note, but just things that can deeply impact your business and things we all need to look out for. Taxes. If you are not a W-2 employee of your business, then you've got to be withholding your taxes. You've got to do it all the time, and you've got to not spend the money. And this is really, really hard advice, and I'm astonished by the number of business owners that I represent or I mediate for that have gotten into tax trouble. The IRS is a brutal mistress, okay? You do not want to mess around with your taxes. So find out, however you're going to find it out. Obviously, I encourage you to talk to a CPA, what your withholding rate is. And when you have your income, don't think I'm going to catch up next month, okay? put the money away, send it to the IRS, don't spend it. It snowballs on you. It's like credit card debt. It snowballs on you. So take good care of your taxes as a business owner. Reporting. Make sure you know what all the reports are you need to file. There are a lot of forms required in running a business. I encourage you to get some outside help on this one. What are the reports you need to file? Make sure you're doing timely filings. You've got it on your calendar, what reports you need to do. If you have employees, that's a whole other group of forms and reports, okay? This is a very big area to have outside help, and I really encourage you to have outside help in this area. Hipaa is a complicated subject, but it's something that you don't want to mess around with. For those, I assume everybody knows generally what Hipaa is, but it has to do with confidential information, and it's not just about medical records. As a family law attorney, I have a lot of access to confidential information of clients and sometimes mediation clients, although I don't usually take a lot of information as the mediator. But anything with account numbers, anything with social security numbers, any kind of health information is protected under Hipaa. And as someone that deals with it, you need to understand what your obligations and duties are in having that information and what you're going to do about it. Okay, so be very careful if you're mediating, not to just, email somebody's tax return out or receive it by email. Okay, beware of any programs that are free in this regard, such as Dropbox. Now, Dropbox Pro has been approved by my Hipaa consultants as something you could use, and you pay a small monthly fee. But Dropbox Free does not have the required protection to handle protected documents. I had to get my laptop encrypted. I had to do timeouts for all of my office computers. We did a lot of work after we heard a Hipaa presentation. I would encourage you, if you are in any way dealing with financial records or medical records, that you look into it and you make sure you know what you have to do. This is an area where you can get hit with stiff penalties, get hit with a lot of bad stuff that can greatly impact your business. And it's very easy to violate Hipaa without realizing it. So this is a little bit of a side note, but it's something that can definitely mess with your business if you don't follow the rules of Hipaa and you don't know what you're supposed to do. And it's even more painful if you inadvertently violate. So that is what I have for you today on running a business. I'm happy to take questions. You'll see at the bottom your code for your CLE. This is all my contact information, and if you want to check out information on book mediation and become a book mediation mediator, there's plenty of information on the website, including costs and all that. It's a very easy sign-up process on the internet, so this is all my contact information. And now I will be happy to take any questions y'all have.
Kathleen, while people are waiting to maybe ponder their questions, as you've given this presentation several times, what are some common questions that you are asked following your presentation?
Usually what I see, I honestly don't usually get a lot of questions. I think that's because people are, when I give it in person, I usually see a lot of fear on the faces of the people I'm talking to, because they're not sure how to go about doing these things, because it's a new thing, to have a bookkeeping software, to have to be managing your business. And so I don't usually get a lot of questions. Let me scroll back through here. And some of the questions I've tried to build into my presentation, such as about cancellation fees and flat fees versus hourly and that kind of thing. Nothing in particular comes to mind. I did, in the presentation I gave in California last week, there was a lot of discussion about Hipaa. And Texas has a state law that piggybacks on the Hipaa and specifically makes sure that lawyers are included and makes a lot of draconian penalties for us. So we had some discussion about Hipaa. Let's see here. But nothing specifically comes to mind that I haven't talked about.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Kathleen? Well, hearing none, Kathleen, I'd like to thank you for an insightful and eye-opening presentation. Thank you for your time, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future. I also invite everyone to visit the Alabama Center for Dispute Resolution's website. It's at alabamaadr.org. That's alabamaadr.org. And also visit our Facebook page. We are posting more training opportunities on our website and our Facebook page. And we're offering a series of webinars that are free. And so we have planned a series of 4 webinars coming up starting in August on the collaborative law practice. And so those will run August, September, October, and November. And we also hope to provide training on consumer law as well as insurance claims. So if you're interested in those, please check back on our Facebook page. We also have other resources posted on our website, so please visit often. And don't forget to complete your evaluation survey. Please complete it by Friday, June 15th. The code that you will enter is ASB 2018. That's ASB 2018. We are asking you to enter your name on the survey so that we will have proper attendance. And if this recording goes well, we'll be sharing it on our website. And thank you again for attending our webinar. Kathleen, thank you so much for your time. And this will conclude the webinar.
All right. Thank you, everybody.